Hey guys, this is the Real Estate Podcast and it's your host, Alex Kaufman. Now, before we dive into today's episode, I need you to do me a solid. Hit that subscribe button on your phone if you haven't done so already, and share this episode with just one person. It's going to help us get this information out to more people to learn about entrepreneurship and real estate. Thanks. Now let's dive into today's episode.
Don't be emotional about an investment. You don't fall in love with the idea of this investment, which then creates blind spots for you. And I've been in the business a long time, so I've seen some of my friends that they're building a business, they got an infrastructure, and it's like you see everything around you that are now yellow and red lights flashing, but because they have an infrastructure and they have a machine going, they just keep going. And they've lost the core principles that made them successful. And now they're dealing with, a few years later, foreclosures and things like that, where if they had just stuck to what got them there, they would have been fine because they would have stopped.
Okay, guys, welcome to the Real Estate Podcast. Matt Teifke, your host here, and I'm extremely excited. Glasshouse Brands, Kyle Kazan, thanks for coming on, man.
Matt, total pleasure. I love your hat. Nice shout out. That's the number one brand for flower in California. So huge thanks for wearing that. And when you get out here, to the extent that you'd like to taste the wine, you let me know, because I'm a big time Glasshouse Farms wine drinker.
All right, I love it. I'm super excited for this podcast. Thank you for sending me this gear as well. And I know you're doing some special things, building some brands, getting into craft cannabis, and you also have done some things on the real estate side. We like to just keep things entrepreneurial, try to add value, try to kind of share the story. I know you're one of the co-founders of Glasshouse Brands. If you don't mind, kind of maybe just give us a quick overview of kind of how you got to this point of your career, and I'll just shoot you questions and have an open conversation.
Matt, I love it. And I can't tell you how excited I am. You talking about real estate, you being down there and probably right now the mecca of real estate in Austin, and then also talking about cannabis. It's right in my sweet spot. So I was looking forward to this all weekend, coming on with you. But my background, it's interesting. My son, who he was applying for colleges, and he and I were like swimming out in the ocean together and doing a little body surfing. And he was like, Dad, I want to get my business degree like you. I'm like, I don't have a business degree. He's like, well, what about your master's? I'm like, well, my graduate work was not in business. And he's like, where'd you learn business? And I'm like, I learned it by doing real estate. Like, you can learn so much from investing in real estate and going in there and getting your hands dirty. And I said, that's really where I got my start. And so, when I graduated from college, I was working I went here to University of Southern California. Tough game against the Texas Longhorns some years ago that everyone likes to bring up, but we don't need to go there. But at the end of the day, I was teaching special ed in the inner city of Los Angeles when April of '92, the riots happened. And the way I think the best way to look at any kind of investing, and of course, real estate, is during those downturns, those recessions, those times where your stomach is just, it's a tough economy. That's probably a good time you should be looking where everybody else is. And so that's when I actually got into buying real estate. And I just started with some small houses that I could afford. They were under market. They needed a lot of work. And I was able to get in there and, buy, I think, at some really good values, and was able to, for not a lot of money, turn the real estate around, put that, get that sweat equity. And I bought them where I could either rent them for a cash on cash return, or I could sell them. And that's always when we talk real estate, I am not a flipper. I'm a value investor that always looks to see, what will my cash on cash return look like once I have purchased the property, invested to turn it around, and then rented it, because then I do not have to sell. If the market gets better or worse, it doesn't matter. And so I always buy my real estate as if I'm never going to sell it. That doesn't mean I haven't flipped some properties, but that's typically because the opportunity all of a sudden was just too big to pass up.
I'm with you completely. I always say, if you can buy real estate and figure out how to keep it, do that. That's just me. I'm a real estate guy through and through. And I love business, and I don't know if it's similar to you, but I started to see the opportunity in cannabis. I'm also a big fan of the flower. And so I was so intrigued. I mean, I started investing in like 2011, 2012, in some of these cannabis companies. And I was never a big stock guy. I actually really did not like stock, but this was the only way I could figure out how to get involved in cannabis, especially being in Austin, Texas. And it's been a wild journey. You know, I'm so fascinated by, and obviously the whole market's struggling a little bit right now. Cannabis has been tough, but the sales and the revenue and the businesses seem to be thriving. And what's interesting, I was just trying to tie that back to real estate, is like, you don't look at a stock ticker and see the value of your property. And I
100%.
think there's something there. People don't panic. People don't think the same way. And that's why real estate just seems to slowly just always go upwards. You know, obviously you got to buy good properties and be in areas where jobs and people are coming. But it is fascinating how you're real estate and cannabis. I'm all about that. And just trying to figure out, how do these things come together over time?
So, all very good points, Matt. And I would tell you, the nice thing about owning your own real estate is you're in control of the asset. Also, the market, unlike a stock, which, goes up and down, and you don't really control why it's doing that. It's more of just watching the market and looking at the values. Where things are together is, I love capital dislocations, that time where you get the queasiness in your stomach, or as Warren Buffett would say, when people are scared, that's when you get greedy, and then be scared when other people are greedy. And so what drew me to the cannabis industry was, I was an advocate to end the war on drugs for many years, starting kind of in 07, 08. And then people started reaching out to me and saying, hey, would you invest? Because they knew I was a private equity guy. And as I looked at the opportunity, one, I had to say no, because it was too dangerous, where, a lot of the police were upset at my stance, and they would have targeted my investments and people I was investing with. So I said no, but it caught my attention that where I've made the absolute most amount of money in real estate have been in downturns where you can make an offer. Think about Austin right now. You can make an offer and you are the only one, or maybe there's one other person at the table, and you can negotiate for weeks. Compare that to where you are today, right, on any piece of property in Austin. Right. It's the complete others. Everybody's greedy. Everybody's running towards it. That's the time to go, whoa, 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 whoa. If I sit this out, is that really going to hurt me? So when it came to cannabis, and even where we are today in cannabis, 99% of people and companies and family offices are not invested in the space. So for you to put some money in right now, I mean, I'm looking, I have a ticker at the bottom, and I see very few companies in green, almost everybody else in heavy red. And so it's just, there's not a lot of money coming into the space. Do I think the industry is great value? 100%. Do I think that we're going to look back at these and say, this is like Amazon in, Amazon.com in 2000? Yeah, I do. And I think for the most part, there's a bunch of stocks you could buy and you'll do great.
Yeah.
Between now and then, though, it may be really bumpy. So you almost have to just set it and forget it.
Yep.
Not worry about it. Know that you're getting a good value. And the same thing goes for, real estate. When I was buying pretty heavy in Atlanta in, say, 2010 and 11, I was buying foreclosures in the city or the area of Buckhead. So A area, I'm buying C properties. And again, I'm negotiating kind of in a vacuum by myself for some of this stuff. And did I know it would rocket up in 8 years? No, I knew it would eventually happen, but I didn't worry about it. And unlike owning a stock, I was being rewarded with some cash on cash return. So I was getting a yield on my investment. So, versus you and I decide to put aside $10,000 into a stock, it may be 6-7 years before we see things move, maybe a year, maybe 6 months. You don't know, but if it's 6-7 years, like from when you invested,
yeah,
you've carried that without you may have wished, I should have just bought a piece of real estate, because you'd have made a yield. So
sure. Yeah. And I was never a flipper. I never wanted to, back to what you were saying about real estate. Like, I didn't want to invest in cannabis to just, buy low and sell high and keep flipping. And it's been like thousands of times when I should have done that looking back, but I just wanted to keep, I was like, I'm in this for the long run. I believe in the plan. I believe in what's happening, and I'm going to follow these companies and find the good ones. When I started, there was a lot of them that were not good at all, and they're not even around. Now there's a bunch of good ones. And it's like you said, most of these, top guys, yourself and some of the other big ones, they're all, in my opinion, so obviously doing well and going to be around, and they're going to succeed. And it's like so many people aren't looking at this, right? And I know that this is a competitive space, and that's kind of what I would like to talk to you about. Is there's a lot of people that are in cannabis, which, obviously, that are either business people or they're just all about the flower and they're on opposite spectrums. Then there's people that are both, and they're operators and they know about the flower. And you guys obviously are building out brands in a super competitive market. What is it that you guys what's the vision and the goal, and how do you guys really look at the cannabis space in general with all that competition and everything?
Yeah, it's all really good questions. Just in response to what you're saying, I would tell you that the entrepreneur that you are, from being a real estate guy, the real estate people that are following you are watching this, you sort of intrinsically know what a good value is and what it isn't. You follow the comps. You just know, hey, I got a great deal. You just know it. And the thing here when it comes to cannabis is it's attracting a lot of real estate people because they get the same feeling, like this feels cheap and it's going to be a massive worldwide industry. So we have an opportunity now. It's just that the unknown that you just don't get paid for right now is that time. And so, but I've got millions of after-tax money invested into Glasshouse Brands, and I'm not taking a dime off the table because I feel it's a good value. And I worry less about, some of my friends that are just traders, even in real estate, they're always watching the time value of money, and they're just like ultra focused in on that. And like if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So you kind of have to pick where you stand on that. And where I stand is I just feel really good when I get a good value, and I try not to worry about the short term. And so that's the same as I feel about cannabis stock. So pivoting to your other question, what's different about being a California company is this is the home of cannabis. People would think of the Summer of Love, 1967. So 55 years ago, people were coming to San Francisco. They were coming, Humboldt, and all these folks that basically were running this illegal business and getting it to people that were buying, they've been, if for want of a better term, they've been serving up chili for a long time. And now chili is going all around the country. And by the way, this kind of chili is an agricultural product. And so California, the growers out here already know the strains that grow really well with them. They know what tastes good. And not only that, but the people that grew up here in California, like myself, you're just around cannabis. As a kid, I knew what pot smelled like. And I also didn't see it as a huge deal. And most of my police buddies had all smoked pot when they were young. So, and admitted so before we got hired because you'd have no police. So I guess what I'm saying is it's in the culture of California, and you can't BS consumers. Like with good marketing, you could probably get almost anything purchased once, but you're not going to get them to come back. And will be the death of your brand. So to us, the way we look at things is we've been focused in on COGS because we compete with an illicit market that has a 50% advantage in taxes. And then there's also testing, all the things we pay for. Plus we have to pay for workers' comp insurance and licensing and all that so that you can track back anything you get from us. It's a real industry. But to compete with illicit, we've got to get our costs down. And so we have been on a relentless pursuit for 6 years plus 7 years to just do that. And so what the brand that you have on your hat has been love, blood, sweat, and tears to get us there. And this new farm that we're turning on, that we'll be harvesting for that brand this year, we're expecting the cost to be way down and the quality to be up. So we are super excited about that. And And I would tell you, it just comes down to making sure that we can get the best buds for the bucks to our, we look at it as kind of a Casamigos if you use tequila. It's not the top shelf, but it's like an everyday luxury. It's like a Ralph Lauren, shirt where it's not breaking the bank, but everybody knows you got something of quality there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also not the cheapest. So that's as far as that brand. And, we're buying Plus gummies and we've got a few other things in the works. But that's basically, we want to make sure that the consumer feels they're getting something special. And if we do well here, where people know cannabis, we're very comfortable we'll do well in other areas of the country and the world. So that's how we look at it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like you said, it's running through people's blood. You're in the most competitive place in the world. And if you can crack that code, you can sell cannabis anywhere, right? So you're not worried about, let's go build out a footprint in Texas. It's more, if we can have good craft quality cannabis at scale, we'll succeed no matter what. We don't necessarily need to have the retail dispensaries or the physical footprint. We'll be able to get our product into any of these stores.
When you talk about Texas, that's a huge market, and it's one of the states that I enjoy being in. Like as a person coming to Austin or going to Dallas, I love it. And so, and you can't ignore right now where each market is its own silo, each state, because I can't grow and ship to Texas. I don't think too much about it other than when I'm asked by friends that are there. I'm super excited. And it's not like when I'm in Austin on 6th Street, I don't smell the product, because I do. But I think Glass House being the long term, we might have some brands that will license when Texas comes online, or we talk to folks in Florida and other places. We're talking to folks in New York. But no, I think for us, the best way is to continue to focus in on winning California, and everything else will fall into place. Look, just getting Texas through legalization.
Yeah.
And I know you've got a good governor in Greg Abbott. He's a business-minded guy. And he's out here, recruiting all my California friends to come his way. So I respect him, but it's like, why he's not moving faster on this, as, the libertarian in me going, what, are you going to try and make that illegal? Come on, man, be smart like you are on so many other business issues.
Right.
But I think it's going to be a great industry for you there. And I think people like yourself will probably end up winning a license, and, you'll find yourself intrigued enough to get into this space. And if you decide to put some bandwidth, Matt, I'm sure you're going to, you'll do quite well.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And I love I love thinking about it. Like you said, real estate, you see value, you see opportunities, you understand the comps. And this is just so different because it's so obvious how the plant plays out and how much demand is here, but it's being held down, and it's not obvious how that's going to play out and how long it's going to be held down. And I used to tell myself, man, this is happening in 3 to 5 years. Now I'm like, I got no idea. Like, this could still be 10, 20 years, but meanwhile, you're still producing quality product. You're still making money. All the big cannabis companies seem to be doing well on revenue and on earnings. And then, stock keep going down, but that doesn't matter. But it's just fascinating because it's like you said, the whole Warren Buffett ideology is like, you just got to hang on. Like, you buy these companies not to see what happens tomorrow, but for the long run, to keep them forever, really.
100%. And Matt, let me give you a feel for the way I look at the world, and you will get this, and your viewers will get it as well. The last, I think everybody that's listening to you, and I teach this once a year to second-year MBA candidates at NYU, all of you should have, within the next few years, 10 1 to 4 plexes, because that is the best financing that I can think of almost anywhere. Why? Because you can get 75, sometimes 80, 85, typically 80 is your max, but 80% loan to value financing, 30-year fixed rate with no prepayment penalty, which means you get to take a free ride all the way to the end on the bank, meaning that it'll just pay itself off if all of a sudden interest rates get away, which it will at some point.
Right.
And so in looking at that, but you only have so much time in a day. So for me, it's better for me to do a 66 unit building in Newport Beach, raise a bunch of money. It takes about the same amount of bandwidth, and the rewards for everybody is much bigger. And we did that. But for my wife, she still goes back to the, like, being some of your early listeners, like, let's get some real estate of our own and let's do this. So when I get phone calls, from some of my buddies going, oh, do you still own a building over here? You're like, yeah, because I don't like selling. I will, but I don't usually like it. Someone has to really make me a fat offer to do it. So bottom line, we found 4 houses on a lot. Cost $1,050,000, which in Austin, you may go, well, that, $250,000 plus a door, that's a lot. Let me assure you, this thing, one of the houses was taken down to the studs on the inside. From the outside, it looked like 4 houses. You open the door, like, wait, where'd the walls go? To me, I was like, that's perfect. Now I don't have to tear the walls apart, and I can put in air conditioning and heating, and I can make it fun. So we buy this thing because it wouldn't appraise. No bank is going to give you a bank loan. You gotta come in there. These are the deals that you're looking for, Matt. These messed up where 99% of the people walk away. That's your deal. It's my deal. So we buy it, spend about $45,000 making a brand new house, and then we were able to raise the rents on the other 3. And my wife and I looked at it and we said, wow, we bought this thing at a 7% cash on cash return, which was kind of unheard of. Once I put 4%, which I've now lowered, 4% 30-year fixed rate debt. Now it's 3.3, I think. Bottom line is, within a year, I was at a double-digit cash on cash return.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about cannabis stocks. If you said to me, what's the value of those 4 houses? I would have told you, I don't care. Value it if you feel like, go to Zillow. I really couldn't care less. And the reason is, I got a winner.
Yeah.
I'll sit on this thing, and it's 30-year fixed rate financing. And it turned out then when financing costs went down, it's like, oh, now I just add another point to the cash on cash return. And so then you just sit patiently. The hard part when you own stocks is, I'm not sitting on a 10% cash on cash. I'm sitting on a stock that just sits there and it's capital tied up. And by the way, it's down, but ultimately I know it's still a great value. So that's the mind thing. But I would tell you, my wife and I look at it, we both know that we believe in our hearts that we're invested in a very good value, even if the value of the stock went to 1 penny, which I don't see that ever happening, but let's just say it did. As long as the company's still chugging along, we don't really care because we're not looking to sell at that point. And so so again, almost all my real estate friends, clients, they're value people. And that's all they care. If they feel like that's where they are on the, in their investment, then they're good to go, and they're pretty patient. So
I love it.
That's what I get.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that philosophy. Let's talk about kind of general business principles, kind of a little different angle for our listeners. You obviously understand business well, numbers, finance. Like, what are the things maybe like with even you and your partner, like that have, just general business philosophy on how you operate and how you've operated throughout your career that's led to your success that you really value, and that you can, constantly work towards on getting better at?
Yeah, great question, Matt. I would tell you, when it comes to real estate, all real estate is local. What is a good deal in Round Rock, Texas is maybe different than in Long Beach, California. And, take your core principles of it, which may be 70%, and then go there and realize, when I show up in Austin, even though I've been there, let's say Round Rock, Round Rock backwards and forwards. I need to be very humble because I'm competing with somebody named Matt and probably 1,000 others that know that market, know all the brokers and everything else. So one of my business principles is make sure whenever you're investing in something to understand the local perspective on what you're doing, and be very, very humble, because there's plenty of people that are ready for you to show up and they'll clean your clock. So
nice.
So that's one of them. The other thing is be realistic in the numbers. And that is, especially when you're trying to use debt, because as you and I know, when you're looking at cash on cash return, you want to keep as little equity as you can put in will drive that. But also there's your risk factor, and sometimes it's better to go all cash, which you're going to go, well, that's going to blow up your cash on cash. And yeah, for a while, but you can also refinance all your money out at some point too. So then it's just using your capital in that investment. So I would say, watch your use of debt. Sometimes I've gone as high as 85, 90%. Other times I've gone zero. And so I really watch that. I think those to me would be core, just core principles. And the last one is, and it's easy to say it, harder to do, is don't be emotional about an investment. You don't fall in love with the idea of this investment, which then creates blind spots for you. And I've been in the business a long time, so I've seen some of my friends that, they're building a business, they got an infrastructure, and it's like, you see everything around you that are now yellow and red lights flashing, but because they have an infrastructure and they have a machine going, they just keep going. And they've lost the core principles that made them successful. And now they're dealing with, a few years later, foreclosures and things like that, where if they had just stuck to what got them there, they would have been fine, because they would have stopped. So those are some of the lessons I've learned along the way.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for sharing. Last thing I kind of wanted to touch on, which is a thing that I think a lot of us are passionate about, and it gets sometimes misconceived because, this is, we're all in this for business in some sense, right? We're trying to make money, but we're trying to build. Yeah. But on the flip side, and I know it's something that you're passionate about with Weldon Project and Mission Green, is like, there's some horrible things that are still going on. People are still getting put in jail. People are still in prison. It's all BS, right? Like, I'm sure we could all go on and on about it. What's the mindset that you have with all that and the kind of criminal justice side of things?
Let me come into that question this way, Matt. Real estate people are some of the cheapest people I know. And you have to be. They'll negotiate the price of paint. Literally. So do I. I can't tell you how many millionaire next doors I know. And I love those folks. They drive the old Corolla. They don't care. And they're rich as heck, because that's their mentality. Now, on the flip side, when I've sat on the board of charities, some of my most generous people were those same real estate people. They look for value. So I say that with respect, and it's almost like the successful people I know in real estate and other investing are very low key, don't care about, like, hey, you wear a hat, you're wearing a black t-shirt. I'm wearing some I got as a gift from, my friends, because I went to USC. And they're focused in on the mission. I would tell you, as a human being, something is missing in your life. And I don't mean to pass judgment, but I'm going to say my life. Something's missing in my life if I'm not finding a way to make other people's lives better, and not for my own ego. And some of the best deeds I think one can do are the ones that nobody knows about. It's between you and the person you just helped.
Amen.
And John Wooden, the famed UCLA, not coach, that was one of his core beliefs. And so the reason I'm very vocal about this is I'm out here every day being judged on how I do as a chairman CEO of Glass House Brands, a publicly traded company. And my report card are my quarterly financials and my stock price. And so it's all about money when it comes down to that, which then comes back to taking care of the consumer, but it's business focused. When you look at the reality of the situation, cannabis is a Schedule I, meaning the most dangerous federal illicit drug. It's up there with there is no higher than that. So it's supposed to be basically the most dangerous, deadly drug out there. And because of that, people are serving very long prison sentences and are still at different points getting sentenced. And I found it to be a massive conflict that when I looked in the mirror to shave every morning, that there were people, many thousands of people, that were waking up in a prison cell with no freedom, watching their life waste away for doing the exact same thing I did as far as legally, violating the same laws that I violate and am encouraged to every single day. And that became untenable, where I would I'm getting on these Zooms, during the pandemic, I'm in these conferences, And finally I said, I need to find a name and a face, because I've raised money for cancer. I've raised money for different charities because as I mentioned, it's something I have to be part of. I need to give back because I've been very, very fortunate. And so, Jesus, John, are we going to keep crinkling the back? Sorry, man. I needed to find that name and face. And so I was introduced to Parker Coleman, and I want to give a name and a face to your listeners and to you. A woman named Sherry Sicard said, when I asked her, I said, please help me. She brings me Parker Coleman. I read his case file. This is a man who today he's 36. He's served about 11 years. He's got 50 to go. Basically, it's a life sentence for selling cannabis. And I read his case file and I said, it's nonviolent. I said, I'd like to speak to his family. Spoke to his family. I said, I would like to make this my cause. I want to take to other wealthy individuals. I want to raise money, and I want to use him as the face of these nebulous thousands of people. And I've gotten to know Parker. I've gotten to know his family. And it's insane that you and I are living our best lives, Matt. You and I are talking about investing in cannabis. Should we invest in cannabis? I'm already there. You're already there. Meanwhile, in your state, Parker is in a federal prison, high security, trying to survive today. And in a democracy, a representative democracy where the majority of Americans think it should be legalized, decriminalized, and that's wrong. It goes on every day, including a president who made a commitment to ending that, and he ignores it.
Right.
So I wake up and I get angry. I communicate with Parker even this morning. We communicate via an app that, like an email, and we go back and forth. And I'm like, hang in, man. The cavalry is coming. Now I'm using like almost police talk. Hang in. Our lights and siren are on. We're coming. And so you've given me a platform to mention Parker Coleman. To all the viewers that hear that name, you look him up and you're like, wow, he did violate, he sold a lot of pot. Yeah, he did. But he's already served 11 years and he's got 50 to go. Tell me how that, you can murder people here in California and I can get that time.
Right.
Jesus Christ. And quite frankly, Matt, if you're not gonna let him out, why aren't you taking me to jail? Put me in jail. We own 6 million square feet. Let that sink in for a second. We own 6 million square feet of greenhouse dedicated towards the growth of cannabis over time. There's never been anybody else that's owned that kind of infrastructure to grow cannabis so I can sell to people. And everybody knows it. So compared to Parker is a minnow. I'm the whale. So, and I'm not asking, hey, lock me up. What I'm saying is let Parker and those other people out. Stop it. And by the way, you're not going to make it illegal because it pays for your cops, your teachers, your firefighters all across the country.
Yeah.
And so Matt, I would tell you that, and I probably went on a little bit long on that.
No, hey, I like it. I think it's good to see that passion because you're obviously passionate about that, right? And people, I'm with you. I agree. And I think people could say like, oh, look at Kyle, he's making money and all these other people are in jail, but you agree and you're on the same page. And not only that, you're fighting for it and going the extra mile to make it right. And so I think there's that big misconception, but also it's just so obviously wrong. And I'm glad you get passionate. I'm the same way. We both agree on this completely. It's total bullshit.
You and I are like many thousands of successful real estate investors out there. They're out there trying to make some money, do the right thing, beautify neighborhoods, provide a better product. Sure, charge higher rent, but it's a better product for the renters out there. Or you're going to sell that asset and it's better. We do things in this country to make things better, and when you see things that are just obviously wrong, you're not scared to speak out. And I think that's where you and I are aligned. And I haven't heard one person say, you're wrong on that, because either put me away or let them out. It's a binary kind of a thing. Yeah. And our job, we have about 400 team members, many of which have stock options. We pay workers' comp. We do the right thing. And the folks that are buying our cannabis, it's tested to the billionth. I mean, it's clean cannabis, unlike the skunk bud I was smoking in high school. So, Matt, I'm inspired by what you do. I'm inspired by what all your viewers are doing. Know that, we're all in this together. And also being Americans, and I am a patriotic American. I've traveled the world. Whenever there's a disaster, somebody, and it's about, hey, Tex, let's send money. More money comes from the average American than anywhere else in the world. We are good people here in this country. Doesn't matter the state you're in, doesn't matter your political view. You're good people, and there's a fairness to us. And where we stepped out of bounds in this drug war, I think we're all realizing, even if it's just this and it's just cannabis prisoners, it's not a good use of our money. It's not a good use of our legal powers, and it's not who we are as a people to be unfair. And that's where I'm pulling. And literally, whether you're lefty left or you're righty right or somewhere in the middle, like most of us, we typically agree that this is wrong. And so I spend a good chunk of my bandwidth speaking out about this, and assuring the Coleman family that with Parker, I will not stop, not till he's out of prison, until he gets a full pardon and gets a chance to rebuild himself, and move on. And that's why I joined Mission Green. And so I highly recommend, if people want to do something, if they're looking for a worthwhile charity, to just look up the Weldon Project. Weldon is WELDON Project, Mission Green. I sit on the board of it, and I will tell you, I'm focused on making sure, like Weldon, that we get the big wins, and they will be coming soon. Mark my words, Matt. I
love it. Thank you so much for sharing. I really, really appreciate that. I guess final things before we get out of here, ways that people can learn more about your company or reach out to people on your team or even add value for you.
So, wow, thank you for asking it. I never get asked that question. One, I would say, if they're considering buying some stocks in the space, and again, we're not the only one that I think that it's a value to be looked at, but GLASF, like Glass F, like Frank, on the OTC, so a Schwab account would buy that, just like you would most of the other stocks. If you go to glasshousegroup.com, you'll get information about us. You can follow me on Twitter at Kyle Kazan. And you'll see, at least, it all comes from right here in my phone. So you'll get my thoughts and things like that if someone's interested. I haven't really talked too much about real estate in there, although we're one of those cannabis companies that does buy real estate too, because, man, talk about sharks. Those real estate guys that like leasing to cannabis, I'd rather just, do it myself. But no, and the other thing is, come on out, try our products. That we're going to have Glasshouse Fest for investors this summer. Matt, I hope you'll come out there. And I'll leave you with this. When I was a school teacher for 4 years, and I'm in the teachers lounge, and all the teachers are trying to find ways to better their financial situation, like all of us. And then with police officers, you see them, parked, and they're talking over their hoods, drinking cups of coffee. They're all doing the same thing, and they're all looking for those investments. And what I would tell you is, before this becomes federally legal, I would say some amount of risk capital should be put into this industry, because Goldman Sachs isn't here yet. The big short folks are not yet here. All the things, the quant traders that sort of obscure the market, are not yet here. And to boot, I said, let's have our annual meeting in Camarillo, which is about an hour and change north of LAX, and let people sample the products. Anyone who's a shareholder, and today, right now, it costs you $4.35 to be a shareholder, to come on out, and then you can call bullshit on me, the CEO. The CFO will be there. Graham Farrar, who's coming your way to speak at South by Southwest in March. He's there, our chief cannabis officer and president. So you have a chance that these teachers and police officers, they couldn't just go up to the CEO of a publicly traded company and call bullshit. And as you know, you can write off business-related trips. So come to California. Southern California in the summer is not a bad place to be, especially when it's 100 and whatever in Austin and humid. So it's the perfect time to come visit us, take a break from the, and I, again, all love to Texas, but when it gets hot, man, I don't like it. And when it starts hailing, feel like I'm taking just maybe the brutal beating I deserve.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. This was a blast. I really enjoyed it. Love the passion. Really excited about the company and what you guys are going to do over the future. And so just appreciate your time. Everybody for tuning in. Real Estate Podcast. Kyle, Glasshouse Brands. This is great. Thanks again, Kyle. Hope you guys have a great day.
If I invite you out to do a podcast in our farm, I would love to come down there and go buy some of my investment real estate down in Austin, see some of yours. It'd be a fun way to get out in the field if you do those kind of podcasts.
Done. Absolutely. Done.
Awesome. Hey, man, thank you so much, Matt. Total pleasure.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.